We're coming to you from the quarterly Black Management Forum CEO breakfast here at the campus in Bryanston, Johannesburg, where we're going to have corporate South Africa share their thoughts on leadership and transformation. Welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm Demisho Greater. Well, there aren't a lot of things that are more important in human activity than leadership. And over the next 30 minutes, I'll be speaking to a few CEOs to get their opinions on leadership and its importance.
In the BMF, we always argue about, does corporate South Africa really represent the feel and look that we want to see? We will wish it to look far much better than it looks today. Our sincerest appreciation to our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Maseko, for making time. We had a brief greetings this morning. I was a bit surprised, but also impressed that he made time for us today. So, Raleboga, nice big speech. It's always good to speak in your mother tongue. For you, in your hectic schedule, to come this morning and say to the BMF, hopefully, what your thoughts are around transformation, how you made it as an individual. There's a lot in this country who look up to you.
Thank you very much to the BMF for inviting me this morning, and it's a very big, complex topic. So we'll just try to have a chat. It's you know, I suppose the topic that was put up, it's always very difficult to talk about it, I think. In a very outside of the context of what needs to be done. I personally truly believe that, you know, leadership is situational. I think that depending on what you find, circumstances produce their own leaders. You know, if Beckersdale has a problem, and sometimes the question is, where are the leaders? But actually, if you go there, there are leaders. There are people who rise up to that occasion and deal with what needs to be dealt with. And ordinarily, in my view, I think it's personally very dangerous to talk about what you do outside of the context of where you found yourself.
I spoke to the CEO of Telkom, Sipho Maseko, who's been at the helm, and to find out how he's leading his organization, especially at a time when it's been in the spotlight. Sipho, thank you so much for your time, very much appreciated.
Thank you.
From what you were saying in your presentation, you said that when it comes to leadership, it's very situational. You get leaders that come out of different circumstances. Exactly what do you mean by that?
Well, our circumstances require us to do different things. One of the things that is very clear for us at Telkom is that before we do the cool stuff, we need to start doing first the hard stuff. We need to get costs out, we need to get a lot more efficient, we need to be simpler, the customers need to be able to access that. So the challenges that we have is that our current situation demands of us to do things different. I think in another year or two, we'll start doing the cool stuff. But at the moment, it's quite a lot of heavy lifting. So that's what I meant around the situational leadership stuff.
You mentioned the uncool stuff, and it was very well publicized how you had to do cost-cutting measures and so forth.
Sure.
How do you still maintain or try and keep your staff motivated and still get them to follow you?
Well, I mean, what is clear to them as well is that the survival of the company depends on how efficient we are with the use of the resources that we have. So we've not imposed a lot of things. We've asked for different suggestions from people actually on how we can save costs. And I've actually received at least 5,000 suggestions from staff saying this is what we need to do, this is what we can do, this is what we need to do. So staff engagement as part of this overall transformation process is an absolute essential thing for us to be able to achieve. And they understand that it's very difficult, but they are with us through this because they understand that it is their organization that they're trying to save and make sure that it endures for tomorrow. So at least for now, we've had some measure of success.
There's been a lot of talk about transformation.
Yeah.
You've mentioned it now. What exactly does that mean to you?
Well, what it means to me is that we need to prepare Telkom to be able to meet the needs of the future. You know, there's transformation at a very elementary level. So how do we make sure that we represent the demographics of the country? But more importantly for us, how do we meet the needs of tomorrow? How will enterprises be ran tomorrow? How will people want to buy things? Will we have the ability to meet that demand? Companies that don't transform themselves and transform their business don't survive. The travel agency business probably doesn't exist anymore, because if you want to travel, you book for yourself online, you pay for your hotel bill, and those industries that never transform themselves find it very difficult to survive. So for us, it is transformation in terms of how do we become locally relevant and represent the demographics of the country, but more importantly, how do we transform the business itself so that it can survive into the future.
Would you say that you're ready?
Well, we're working on it. It's a journey. It's a journey. I think that we are investing a lot, both in the infrastructure of the firm. We're investing a lot in people. We're investing a lot in partnerships so that we can get into that future in the right way. And the partnership point for us actually is a very important thing, because unless you are able to partner and collaborate going forward, you will not be able to survive. You will not be able to bring value to society, if one may put it that way. So all of those things are the things that we are working on quite hard to make sure that we are able to play in that new ecosystem and the new world in a way that's very pragmatic and meaningful to society and to our customers.
Bonang, Mohale mentioned just how inspirational that you've been. Now, over the past couple of months, Telkom has been in a lot of the media. Yeah. You've also been in the media, and there's been talks surrounding the fact that you may have had to go for a corporate governance. That's right. And you know, you're a leader. You're a CEO of a company. How does this come across the people that you need to lead?
No, sure. I mean, you know, just on that example, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Unfortunately, the people never spoke to me. They relied on newspaper reports. Incidentally, we got a letter from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange who sort of said, you know, for them there is no issue. And I guess therein lies probably the trick. You also need to be able to, you know, laugh at yourself and sort of say, well, you know, they probably got this one wrong. We've also been in the media, and I guess it's not something that we set out to do. On the issue of termination rates, our view was that it was not just a matter that needed to be debated by the courts, but also a matter that needed to be put and clarified and simplified for broader society, so that they have views. They'll have views against, they'll have views pro, that's okay, but at least we've elevated the discussion. And I think Telkom must perform that function, actually. Telkom must perform that role. There are things that we do on behalf of the entire country that people don't know. The entire banking system of this country is dependent on Telkom and how Telkom works. So therefore, eliciting a debate on termination rates was okay, actually. And I think now a lot more people I found know what is a termination rate, and they have a view. Whether it's a view pro or anti, it doesn't matter, but at least people are informed and they have a view.
Just with that, with regards to those termination rates, you sent out an open letter. I think that was something that you decided to do.
Yes, ma'am.
And there was another open letter that was addressed to you from one of the journalists that had quite a few questions when it comes to that, saying that, you know, Telkom did benefit from the infrastructure, or did benefit from Vodacom when it was still, when you still owned half of Vodacom at the time.
But that is not the point. I mean, I didn't see the open letter, but I've heard it referenced to. But that was not the point. You know, the point, and that's why principle applies irrespective of which side you find yourself in. The point here is that from '94 till 2014, it's a hell of a long time to maintain an imbalanced termination rate between fixed and mobile. And as Telkom, we're saying we just want an equalized termination rate. You know, whether we were shareholders at the time or not, you know, that's not the point. The point is that if you objectively analyze where we are at, should termination rates that favor mobiles by fixed, effectively fixed players subsidizing, should they continue or not? You know, and if the answer is yes, they should continue, we have a different view. And if the answer is that they ought not to continue, it's because we actually think that that time has come to pass. You know, you can't say that because I was part of something in the beginning, I can't have a view. The world changes and the economy changes, circumstances changes. So if you hold on to something that you've been doing for the last 20 years because you have to hold on to it because you've been doing it for the last 20 years, I don't think that's smart.
You've mentioned that when it comes to leadership, you need to have effective or good relationships with your stakeholders.
Sure.
This includes everyone that you're in contact with.
Yeah.
What's the situation with MTN currently?
No, we have a good relationship with MTN, actually.
Are you going to be looking at collaborating with them in terms of sharing certain infrastructure? There has been talk that there is a deal in the pipeline between MTN and Telkom.
Yeah, what we did is that we issued a cautionary. We've signed heads of agreement last week, Friday, between ourselves and MTN. The arrangement is that we will share the radio access network. So we are not combining assets. We're just sharing the radio access network. And in a sense, we're creating a super roaming agreement. And in fact, actually, at the right time, when the details of the transaction are revealed, it will show that it reduces cost. Over time, it will become beneficial to the companies themselves. It will become beneficial to consumers because I don't invest in my own radio access network and they invest in their own radio access network and we get the customers to pay for it. But actually now by sharing, we're reducing the cost of investment, therefore reducing the cost of the customer, to the customer rather. So that's the broad definition of the transaction. Sharing the radio access network, effectively having a super roaming agreement between ourselves and them, where we roam on their network as we currently do. They roam on our network, which would be the new thing. And we can then optimize costs, we can then optimize capex. But from a competitive point of view, we will still compete as Telkom Mobile. But the things that don't matter to the customer, we will share those things. So things that the customer doesn't see and the customer doesn't care about, which is the radio access network. The customer is not kind of bothered where is your equipment? Do you have that equipment or not? The customer just wants to use their mobile phone and it works. So we will look to share, and that's part of one of the elements of the transaction that we issued a cautionary on.
Sipho, before I let you go, I have to ask you this question. What would you say your leadership style is?
Well, it depends on what the problem is, all right? It depends what problem you're trying to solve. I think at the moment, one of the things we're trying to do, we're trying to generate as much energy, self-confidence, and focus within the ExCom team over the next 3 to 5 years. And then beyond that, it will depend what the challenges that we see going forward so that we can then adjust our leadership style in order for us to be able to meet the challenges that we have ahead of us. So the style must always be informed by what is the challenge in front of you. At a personal level, I like robust dialogue. I like a bit of intellectual combat because it's important that we test how we think about things. And I also like making sure that there are diverse views around the table because the more views I have, it gets my views to be better as I hear different views.
Welcome back to the quarterly Black Management Forum CEO Business Breakfast. Well, I caught up with the president of the BMF to get his thoughts on leadership and transformation. Dr. Mohale, thank you so much for making the time to join us. Very much appreciated. Before I get to talking about the Corporate Management Competency Index, I want to talk about something that has been, that has been rehashed quite a lot. You're talking about transformation. You say that our companies don't look like us. What do you mean by that?
You see, the definition of transformation, it's a fundamental break with the past. It's about changing things to the core. We have had 350 years of a history that we are not proud of, where we were not optimally utilizing all our people. For instance, 54% of the population is female, and yet their representation in positions of leadership is less than 11%. 80% of this population is black, and black's definition is anybody that was excluded on the basis that they are not white. So if we do not find a mechanism to accelerate their personal growth and development of women and black people. It's like going to war with only 20% of your population and still hoping to be internationally competitive. So what you describe is a truism for the rest of the world, not just for South Africa. When I started, I said Chinese, Indian, and Japanese companies look typically Chinese, Indian, and Japanese. But South African companies were a bit confused. In fact, even our own management, culture, and ethos, we are blacks pretending to be Europeans. We are African managers espousing values that are very Eurocentric. We do not manage our people. We do not lead our people the way Africans should be leading. Because if all we do is to copy what other nationalities are doing, what then are we going to put on the table of global development moving forward and upwards in space as something that's uniquely South African? And when somebody talks to me about Ubuntu, I will throw up, because we talk about that word without good research, without fundamentally understanding that this is one area that is absolutely us. The way we walk, the way we talk, the way we engage, interact, and interface with other human beings is defined by that humanness.
Let's talk about this corporate management competency index. You said that there are certain things that are unique to South Africa. One of the things that this index found was that problem solving was a problem. Is this unique to South Africa, or is this something that we're also seeing in other African countries or across the world?
You see, when we emphasize, palette, highlight, and celebrate our uniqueness, we accept that that's probably no more than 20% of who we are. 80% of the issues that we are confronted with will be common across the globe. So this management competency index informs us that, like the rest of the managers everywhere else in the world, the one area where we are really struggling is problem solving. And we could do better. And problem solving becomes important because there is no such thing as an internationally competitive country or an internationally competitive company or an internationally competitive people. All of us are in this together. So when we say we want to put our best foot forward, it means exactly that. South Africa will rise or fall not so much on our quantum of our resources, but on our ability to manage, to plan, lead, coordinate, and organize. We have very good plans, probably the best plans in the world. We come short on execution, on follow-through, on deploying the best talent without any fear of retributions or reprisals. We must be looking at the whole of South Africa, 51.7 million people, and saying, what are they passionate about? What are they good at? What are they schooled to do? And what is their particular skills? And be able to deploy those in areas that will give us the greatest leverage. At the moment, what I see us doing is that we are simply not succeeding in having the 287 municipalities just to give us clean audits. So this competency index says we need to lead beyond just a superficial understanding of governance, the duties of stewardship and probity, the duties of skill, care, and diligence. It is about how we focus on the people as our greatest asset. Because a company that is inappropriately located can always move its head office. The one short on cash can borrow money. But if you are poor on people, you are dead.
What's the BMF doing about this problem?
We're doing a number of things. First of all, we're ensuring that we produce hordes of people that have been properly schooled, properly oriented in the context of South Africa. We are partnering with institutions of higher learning, GIBS, UNISA, University of the Witwatersrand, Duke, Stanford, and even Harvard to do things like director development program, issues on corporate governance, but also what are the skills required for 2020 and 2030, not just for 2040.
I wanted to come back to transformation because this is a very big issue. Recently, there was what a lot of people have been calling a controversial bill with regards to the Petroleum Amendment Act, that free 20% that government will be entitled to. The Minister of Mineral Resources, Susan Shabangu, said that this is important for transformation. but you've had business say that this might alienate investors. Does transformation come at a cost?
I think one of the things we learn in leadership is our ability to hold two seemingly opposed ideas in our heads at the same time and still be able to function. What South Africa needs is foreign direct investment and transformation. What it needs is economic growth and employment equity. What it needs is effectiveness and efficiency whilst redressing the imbalances of the past. To us, it's not either or, it's both and together at the same time, simultaneously, concurrently, and in parallel. The Mining's Petroleum Resources Development Act is doing what this country should have done in 150 years of mining. Because incidents like Marikana are not just an inflection point, turning point, or even a tipping point. They are a strategic conversation that a poor community around a sea of wealth is talking to us about, to say, how can these companies continue to repatriate profits when they don't genuinely care about the development, the growth of the community from which they operate? So I think if we take the lessons from Marikana, we internalize them, we will be able to agree with Minister Susan Shabangu in the heroic efforts that she is doing. But what business is also saying is, but let's be clear about the playing fields, let's be clear about the rules, let's be clear about the delegation of authorities so that foreign direct investment thrives when there's stability, when there's increased certainty, when there are skills, when there is economic growth.
What do you make of the state of leadership, not just in South Africa, but on the African continent as a whole?
I think Africa, we are very blessed because this 21st century must be Africa's 21st century, because US of A is in a recession, Europe and the whole EU is in a recession driven mostly by Portugal, Italy, Greece and Spain. 1 in 2 people in the world live in China, India and Africa. There's almost 1 billion of us. And the wonderful thing about Africa is that we don't have goods and services and we are not exposed to some of the things that companies need at the moment. So if any company is thinking of investment and you are not taking Africa seriously, you have already missed the plot, because the risks in Africa are huge, political, socio-economic and geographical, but the rewards are 10 times as much. Coming to Africa, you just have to understand how Africa prefers to do things, that this is not an outpost of Europe. You need to genuinely understand what Africa needs. And if you can get that right, you'll be able to name your price. So I think when you look at the 3 major economic trading blocks in Africa, and you look at the increasing skills levels and education levels, I think we need to be really positioning this continent for a major upwards and forwards trajectory.
You're a leader of many organizations. What is your leadership style?
I think the conversation around leadership styles is a bit archaic, because today what is required of leadership is our flexibility. You see, polarities are not problems to be solved. They are exactly that, to be understood. So at one instance, one can choose to be very decisive, very charismatic. On the other hand, depending on the situation, you might be required to be consultative and participative. The same way that we talk about outsourcing, insourcing, these are just cycles, the ebbs and flows in business, about centralization and decentralization. All of those are skills that need to be embedded in any leader's repertoire. So for me, I consider myself to be a very attuned, actively listening type of leader, a leader that genuinely focuses his heart on the people, but his head on the numbers. Because you can't do the people without the numbers. You can't do the numbers without the people. You need to do both. But most importantly, every leader is a product of their context. And once you understand what pain have I been brought here to solve, then I think you'll be an appropriate, relevant, conscious, very purposeful leader.
Every CEO has a unique leadership style. We caught up with a few decision makers to find out how they lead their organizations.
My leadership style varies. It depends on the set of circumstances that I face. It can be very direct and me telling people that this is what I need to happen. But mainly on the main, I really like to let people fly and see their talents flowering. I like to empower people. I like people that are go-getters, people that have the energy and can see when I say this is the vision, they can see it, they can take it and run with it.
I think my leadership style is more collaborative and inclusive leadership, because as part of the leadership you realize the importance of working as a team, but also respecting and appreciating those that you are leading. Often at times you lead people that perhaps are leaders in their own rights as well, so you need to be quite appreciative of the various and variety of the capabilities that they bring on board to be able to achieve whatever objectives that you've set yourself.
The first principle I follow is that leadership is not about leading yourself, but it's about acknowledging and recognizing first that you lead others, because they have willingly said you'll be our leader, and you need to really give them that confidence and trust that you are the person who will develop, coach, mentor, train them and make their life better and make their life have purpose. So it has always been about people who I lead and not about me.
Well, it brings us to the end of this segment. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. From me, Tumisho Greater, it's goodbye.